Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Homeland Security Today's interviews with plank holders of the Department of Homeland Security. If you didn't know, it's DHS's 20th anniversary. And so Homeland Security Today decided to take some time and talk with the people who started the department all across DHS as they converged 22 different agencies. People were brought in, they had paper boxes, they were moving around and trying to put a huge organization together to protect our domestic homeland. So I am Kristina Tanasichuk, the executive editor of Homeland Security Today, and also the CEO of GTSC. Today, we have the distinct pleasure of talking with Michael Derrios, and he has been an acquisition leader for many, many years, from the Coast Guard to now the Department of State to all across the department. And he was one of the plank holders. And so we're very excited to talk to you, Mike. How are you?
I'm well, excited to be here and chat with you. I think it's great that you're doing this.
Thank you. Us too. We're very happy. It's so fun to learn about people who've been at the department for the 20 years. So where were you when it all came down?
Yeah, so I guess I have to caveat and say I was only with the mission for 18 years, 18 of the 20.
Only, okay.
Now with the State Department, but yeah, my journey really kind of started right after 9/11. I began my career in the Air Force, left active duty, and then kind of settled down in the DC area, and really had no intentions of working for the government, to be honest. I was in private sector for a couple of years when 9/11 happened, and just kind of felt the call to duty. For anyone that knows the name Richie Lieber, if you don't know that name, I guess I should say, then you probably weren't around at the beginning stages of TSA or DHS. He recruited me over. He was pulled over by the secretary at the time, Secretary Mineta, to help stand up the acquisition office at TSA right after it was formed. And reached out and needed some help. And so I actually started over at TSA as the third contracting professional in that office. They probably got now, well over 150 folks working and supporting that mission. But I came over at a time when, it was April of 2002, early April of 2002. The first airport had not been, or was just in the process of being federalized, BWI. So I was really there at the beginning of TSA. I think we had less than 100 people at headquarters at that time. I remember everybody just being in a bullpen and pitching together. And like you said, people carrying stuff around in boxes. I was one of those people. You'd turn to the side in the bullpen at the GSA building, and you were talking to an IT professional. Then you turn to this side and you'd be talking to an HR professional. I mean, that's how integrated it was at that time. And so, yeah, I was with the TSA mission for 14 years. I did a combination of both procurement and program management while I was there. My last post, I was actually supporting both the pre-check program and then the passenger screening program, the technology at the checkpoints, and then went over to the Coast Guard and was there at an incredible time in their history when they were recapitalizing a lot of their platforms. So had an opportunity to really be engaged in a lot of the good work to get new ships online on the production line that were going to replace aging assets for people that had been on, out there risking their own lives on, assets that were 70 years old. So it was an incredible time to be at the Coast Guard. So yeah, I saw the DHS mission up close and personal for 18 years. I was there at TSA actually when it stood up under DOT, and then a year later, shortly a year plus later, transitioned under DHS. So I've seen that mission, that culture kind of come together. And I'm still watching it, from afar. It's an incredible mission set. I think it's frankly one of the most relevant missions of our time today. It touches every American citizen in some way every day.
Absolutely. And did you seriously just say afar? So, many of you may not know that the federal government buys according to the rules of the Federal Acquisition Regulations, the FAR. So he just did a cute little thing there. I think many also don't understand the importance of how the government buys. So can you just speak a little bit to, standing up a procurement/acquisition office and some of the complications of engaging so many different people? I mean, you were lucky that you were in TSA and they were trying to do a unified just TSA. I mean, I can't even imagine how DHS headquarters procurement was going, but can you speak to that a little bit? Because that purchase process is extremely important to the American people.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that, and I think also the impact of some of the programs that I was able to support. Federal procurement is a very fluid line of business, very regulatory dense environment, and so navigating that while you're trying to basically support essentially a startup. It was like a startup company in Silicon Valley. That just so happened to have a lot of money backing it from Congress, but it also had some pretty lofty mission requirements from Congress as well. And trying to support that, through the procurement process was challenging. We were taking on contracts from the FAA and trying to figure out how to convert those now to different formats with a federal workforce. I mean, anything you can think of. It was program management support. It was technology. It was badges, guns for the federal air marshals. It was everything you could possibly imagine. And a small group of people all trying to procure for this burgeoning mission set. 14-hour days were the norm, to be honest. But navigating that, I think, and trying to be agile enough to respond to the ever-changing, mission threats. I can't say enough about that. You want to compete, and you have to compete where it makes the most sense. But we also had to do some sole source contracting, a lot of interagency work, a lot of partnering with other federal agencies to figure out how to leverage their procurement vehicles in support of the mission as well. DHS is you think about how you think about sorry, Kristina, I'm
No, I totally get it. There's so much going on at that time, and so many different things that had to be integrated. I mean, I loved your comments about you turn to the right and it's an HR person, and you turn to the, that kind of integration is very rare now. So yes, no, I totally get it. So you talked a little bit about the impact some of the programs you worked at had on DHS. And from your perspective, I mean, you do come from the contracting perspective, but what impact has putting the department together had on Homeland? Has it helped? Has it not helped? Or what positive or negative things have you seen from forming DHS?
Oh yeah, no, DHS has had an incredible impact. So the department has artfully woven security into the fabric of our nation's DNA. And if you think about it, it's been impacts to the way commerce, transportation, our infrastructure operate every day in the delivery of services to the American citizen. And I think the department tries to do that as unobtrusively as possible. Bringing together a security apparatus that was previously fragmented under one umbrella, and then figuring out how to leverage mission commonalities, to maximize, economy of effort. I think, they've been phenomenal at it, to be honest with you. I'll give you an example. Just think about the hurricanes of the last decade. The major hurricanes, you've seen FEMA, you've seen Coast Guard, you've seen TSA, CBP, all out there together, boots on the ground. And then you'd also have volunteers from across the other components that would, come out and support those efforts. That kind of unity of effort is what makes, I think, the DHS brand so special, in my opinion. DHS is, also really become a focal point to help build bridges to the IC, the intel community, DoD, State Department. It's really, a nexus with all of those missions. And I had the opportunity to support a lot of amazing programs, DHS programs. Secure Flight was one of those. TWIC, Transportation Worker Identification Credential, the Air Cargo Program, the PreCheck Program. But you think about other things like the global entry with CBP. I mean, these programs really do impact Americans every day. I was talking a little bit earlier about the recapitalization of the fleet of the Coast Guard. Those offshore patrol cutters, the Waterways Commerce Cutter, the new polar security cutters that are coming online. All of this, even if it's unbeknownst to the American citizen, it has an impact on them. Knowing who is boarding airplanes now and entering ports and helping to determine whether they pose a threat before they enter into those environments. Motivating industry to adopt screening standards for the transportation of cargo. Looking for ways to change the passenger screening model to better facilitate throughput at checkpoints and then offer a better experience, passenger screening experience to passengers. Reducing drug trafficking, curtailing illegal immigration, increasing American presence in parts of the world where it's needed, given geopolitical issues that threaten the flow of commerce, which affects the countries we have friendly ties with. You name it. All of this is going on behind the scenes, and regular, ordinary folks may not be aware of that. But you really can't go anywhere in your daily life now without some element of DHS underpinning your safety, I think, in some way. So that's really a measure of the success, and frankly, the ultimate measure of I think DHS's impact is that there has been no successful terrorist attack by a foreign adversary on U.S. soil since 9/11. So the department, if you think about it, the department has in fact delivered on its mission of safeguarding Americans, the homeland, and our values.
Absolutely. And I really respect how you've talked about the different components, because I think another thing that's, you kind of think of DHS as this one big thing, and it's really not. And even in the disasters, and there's a process in place. And I think, DHS and others, we have a responsibility to explain that process to the American people so they understand that when there's a disaster, a governor calls FEMA in, they just don't go marching in, and other things about the coordination of different components, because each component has a unique and special mission. And it's not one behemoth. So, we're trying to figure out the best integration of all of those missions, but that's an ongoing challenge. So what do you see as like DHS's challenge for the future, or where do you think we should be putting thought and resources to maintain never being attacked since 9/11?
Yeah, that's, the DHS mission is never going to get easier. I think that tighter integration at headquarters is one thing that the department is probably going to need to try to evolve towards. I mean, it's much better, than the fledgling days of the agency. But I think the striking that balance of the appropriate level of governance and oversight between headquarters and the components is something to focus on. The component agencies need that autonomy to be able to execute mission through their their delegated decision making, but headquarters has to offer the right level of I think standardization and support, while also continuing to have that healthy system of checks and balances in place. Even though the missions are very different amongst the component agencies, I think there's still an opportunity to standardize a lot of processes and policies that would actually allow the department to accomplish even more through smart economy of effort. I think continuing to strengthen the ties to industry and the broader Homeland Security enterprise that you talked about. It's not just the department. It's industry. It's everyday citizens. It's academia. You name it. Local governments, state governments. The Homeland Security enterprise is much broader than just DHS itself. And I think continuing to look for smart ways to strengthen that are going to be important things to focus on. I think about the industry aspect of it specifically, given that I do acquisition in the government and have focused on that. I think every chief procurement officer at DHS has continued to improve on that, and I think the department is doing it very effectively. Industry is a mission partner for every federal agency. Same for us at State Department. But DHS has really, made good strides over the course of the last several years, including industry in that conversation about the mission set overall, and figuring out how to bring other relevant stakeholders into that dialogue as well, to think about, kind of like incubator style conversations, thinking about what the future capabilities of the department need to be in order for it to be successful. I think just taking that to the next level is something that would be good for the department to do. Keep looking for ways to leverage the interagency effectively, like it already does. Again, there's this natural nexus to the intel community, DoD, State Department, and Homeland Security. I mean, it is all connected, and I think continuing to build those bridges is going to be very important. I'd say also focusing on strengthening ties with foreign governments is going to be important going forward. I think in the first 20 years, the department had to obviously focus on a little bit more focus on domestic relationships and partnerships, but I think expanding the Homeland Security enterprise into international waters even more than we already are is going to be a need in the next 20 years as we see increased economic and political globalization, and the threat of proliferation is still looming out there. I'd say cybercrime is going to be something that every federal agency is going to have to contend with in a major way going forward. And I guess I'd say technology is something to think about. While advancements like AI, artificial intelligence, are absolutely going to present opportunities, they're also going to present threats to the homeland, I think, if we're not mindful about how they can be weaponized. So, for example, autonomous weapon systems, they're progressing. The thinking around that, the development around that is progressing, and that weaponization of AI, I think, could really pose challenges both to DoD and DHS in the very near future. But I guess I would just end by saying, the department will do what it's always done. They'll be agile, and they'll meet the threat head on. So I have no doubts about that because they have some of the best people in government working there.
Well, that's awesome. Awesome. I totally agree. And I'm so glad you brought up the point about the private sector, because, you and I both work with the private sector, and really, you can't think of it as us and them, because it's all America. And that partnership and helping government learn the cutting edge of what's going on in industry, and industry learning what the government needs to protect the country is such a critical conversation. And procurement officials like you who actually talk to industry, they make a huge difference. And hopefully conversations and continued collaboration help the mission forward, but also really help protect the American people and keep DHS as much on the cutting edge as we can be. Technology is changing really fast. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. I love these conversations. I'm so glad you will be in the historical record of, helping to start TSA, being the third person there. Thank you for all you've done for the American people, and certainly for, kind of the unglorified part of Homeland Security, which is that purchasing. I don't think many people hold parades for you guys, but honestly, like you said, buying the right cutter and buying the right equipment is so critical to achieving mission. So thank you for your service, and we always look forward to talking with you.
Thanks, Kristina. Great to be with you.